For the Selections Collage Challenge, you'll need to open photographs from your scavenger hunt into Photoshop. And so I have them all open here. I am then going to open a new file. And this new file, I'm going to go to print because I want it to be letter size, but I want it to be landscape. So it's actually going to be 11 by 8.5. And then I'm going to hit create. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and save it into my OneDrive so that I can simply do quick saves as I go. So remember, it's going to be your period number, underscore, your last name, underscore, the name of the assignment, which is going to be Selections, Collage. It's going to be a PSD, a Photoshop file. That's the first one on the list. And then hit save. Okay, so what we're using here are our selection tools, and I'm going to show you a few examples first. I'm going to start off with the rectangular marquee tool, and I am going to, I don't know which photo I want for it. I'm going to go ahead and use the sleeping seal. Now, you have an option here for feather. If you put it at 0 pixels, that means it's going to be a hard edge, but if you change the feather somewhere around 5 or 6 pixels, it'll give a nice soft edge to it. And you are going to be doing half of your selections with feathered edges and half without. So I'm going to go ahead and use the feathered edge on this so you can see it. Now, using the rectangular marquee, if I just draw, I can do it freehand to where it becomes a rectangle. But if I want a square, I'm going to hold my shift key down, and that's going to give me a perfect square. Now, if I want to deselect, once I see the marching ants, if I don't like where it is, I can hit Control D to deselect and try it again. So here I've got a square. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm using Control C, which is my keyboard shortcut, and I'm going back here and I'm going to hit paste. Now this particular photo was a little on the small side, so I'm going to transform it. Remember, you can go to Edit Transform or Control T, and then I can double click to apply it, and notice the feathered edges there. Okay, so if I had set it to 0, that would be a hard edge as opposed to that soft edge. Now, next one I'm going to do is going to be the elliptical marquee, and I can actually close that sleeping seal because I'm not going to use it again. This one I'll put at 0, and I'm not sure which one I want yet. I'll do the dragonfly here. And same thing, if I hold my shift key down, I get a perfect circle. One other key that you can hold down is your Alt key. And notice if I hold my Alt key down, it makes the circle or oval from the center. See how it grows from the center? As opposed to click and drag around it. Okay, so sometimes if you know where the center of what you want selected is, you can hold Alt. That's right next to your space bar. I'm holding Alt and Shift so I get a perfect circle around that dragonfly. And then I'm going to copy that and come over here and see that hard edge on there. I'll go ahead and transform it to make it a little bit smaller. And remember that you want to go ahead and name your layers as you go, because as you wind up later with your with all your photos and you need to rearrange them, you need to know what layer is what. So the next ones I'm going to show you fall under the lasso tools. We have a regular lasso tool, polygonal, and magnetic. So I'm going to start with the lasso tool, and I am going to go ahead and use the elephant for this. So the lasso tool, think of it kind of like the brush tool. As long as you have your mouse down, it's following you. So it's making just free-form path like that. Okay? You can do that with 0 feather, because remember you need 1 with feather, 1 without. Okay, I'm actually going to make this one, well, I'll keep this one with feather. This lasso tool is hard if you're trying to go right around, whoops, and keep it close, because your hand slips, the mouse slips, etc. It's hard to do it that way. Okay, so this is the one where we want to make creative, free-form design, and I'll just kind of follow the bumps around it, and I can copy and come over here and paste and Control T to transform, and that is the lasso tool. The next one is going to be the polygonal lasso tool, and the polygonal lasso tool is kind of nice. I'll go ahead and close the elephant because it allows you to click along a path. When you have something with straight edges like this, it makes it easy. So what I do is I'm going to start on this corner and I'm going to click every time I want the path to change direction. So see how I'm clicking, and there's a little curve right there, but then it's pretty much straight till you get over. Whoops, I maybe cut that one a little too far. Okay, so this is the polygonal, and it's click every time you want that curve to change. So when I get to the edge of the photo, I'm just going to go straight down. And straight across. And the edge of the photo straight up. And it gets me back to the beginning of my path. Okay, now this one also had a feather of 5, basically because I forgot to change it at the beginning. That's easy to do, so make sure that you're going back and forth. So there is that sign. When I transform, I am holding down my Shift key, or you can lock it here to keep it in proportion. It's very important that you do that. You can also, while you Control T, you can rotate it a little bit. So if you wanted something a little bit sideways, you could do that. All right, the last one I'm going to show you is the magnetic lasso tool. And I am going to use the magnetic lasso tool. I think you want to use the magnetic lasso tool on something where there's a lot of contrast. So I'm going to use it here. I'm keeping my feather at 0. And I'm going to start right here. And the magnetic lasso tool, what it does is it follows the contrast of your photo. So I'm not clicking. I'm just dragging the mouse, and I am dragging slow because if I drag too fast, it most definitely will not cooperate. But it sort of attaches itself to wherever it notices a contrast in color. So around the yellow of the boat and the oar, and around me, it's noticing contrast between that and the water behind it. Now, you'll maybe notice that it just kind of cut off my hand, which is good because I wanted to show you the next step. So if I zoom in here and I show you, you can see that I'm not perfectly selected. It chopped off my shoulder and my arm there. So what I want to do is I want to go into quick mask mode. That's right down here under your color picker. When you do that, it puts a red tint on your photo. And then now you need the brush tool. Now, depending on what feather you set at, this was a hard edge for mine, So my brush should also be 100% hardness. The size is going to depend on how big of an area you need to brush. So I'm going to leave mine at 13 for now. Now, you notice I just clicked. That was with black as the foreground. What that does is it takes away part of the selection, okay? But if I change it to white as the foreground, you'll notice that I can brush and it's going to add to my selection. Okay, so I'm painting my hand so that it becomes part of my selection. And up here, my hair, my shoulder over here, it's becoming part of my selection. There's a little part of my kayak that's not selected down here. Let me go up and look at my oar. Oops, see, and there's a little part. And I'm just doing small strokes. Oops, that wasn't a small stroke. Small strokes, because if you try to do it in one big long stroke, you do what I just did twice and wind up with too much. Okay, so then I can flip back to black because there was something down here. I need to get rid of this water here. And then there's water here that should not be part of my photo. I wasn't able to get in there with the magnetic lasso tool, or I didn't. I shouldn't say I couldn't. I didn't. I could have, because I could have added to my selection. Now, as I need to get into the crevices, I decrease my brush size, and obviously you can do that up here, but you have some brackets up below the plus key, and the left bracket makes your brush size smaller. The right bracket makes it bigger so that I can fill in big spaces now like this. And then when I zoom back out, I have a pretty good selection. I turn it off. I like that better, so I can Control C and Control V, and there is that. Okay, I'm going to show one more just to show you an instance. So let's say that this statue, I start off with a rectangle like this. Well, let's say I want to add or subtract from this selection. I have these options up here. So I could subtract from this selection. I'm still using my rectangle marquee tool, but I am going to cut off this area right there. And then I can cut off, oops, this area down here. And maybe I make it not quite so much and I use my polygonal lasso tool. Maybe I can cut off a little bit more by doing this. And one more down here. And now I have another unique selection by adding and subtracting to my selection. Okay, so just remember they don't all have to be, they don't all have to be like this where it's a perfect selection. Some of them will be a circle, some of them a square or a rectangle, some of them will be free form like this, some of them will be unique selections. But you're going to have at least 10 photos, 5 feathered, 5 not feathered, and you have to use each one of these tools twice. Rectangle twice, elliptical twice, lasso, polygonal, magnetic twice each. And notice that I did use multiple ones on this, okay, but it was mainly the rectangle marquee. So again, save it as a Photoshop file, and when you're completely finished, you'll do a save as. And remember, that's when you change the file type to a JPEG to go on your canvas.